Johnny Core from the Battle Bling store here for you with another quick video tutorial. In this one we're going to cover how to prepare your resin for painting. That's cutting, curing and filing. Let's get to the table. So here we are at the hobby table. We've got some resin miniatures to prepare, and after a bit of clean up we'll be able to get some undercoat and then some paint on them and glue some models on them later. When dealing with resin, it's important to have a few things at your disposal. First off, and probably most importantly, you should know that resin when used with clippers shatters. So just be really careful if you are going to clip small bits off, because they do tend to ping off other smaller parts of the model that you maybe didn't intend to have clipped off. So just bear that in mind. If you do need to cut certain pieces off, score them with a really sharp knife before clipping. Try and get yourself a nice little channel so that the resin will shatter along a path. So if you scored nicely with it with a knife beforehand, it will help, but largely I try not to use clippers. Super useful for when dealing with resin is to have some wet and dry sandpaper and a selection of different grit sticks. You'll notice that each of the sticks has a number on. The lower the number, the tougher the grit will be, the more coarse it is, but also the more filing it will do. So you can go up the line from 80 to 7,000 grit. Obviously at 7,000 grit you're basically buffing and polishing, and at 80 grit or 180 grit you're really taking chunks of that model off when you sand. So let's have a quick look. We use an 80 grit to start with, just to see what it will do to the model. You can see as you sand you do create a lot of dust. That's where wet sandpaper comes in really handy. As you see over here, if you just want to sand the base of the model, you can get a decent sanding going on, but no dust. And because it's wet the whole time, you'll end up with a really smooth finish. Due to the nature of 3D printed resin, you're going to find you'll get a few lumps and bumps on your model. This is just a bit of scarring from where the support has been on the miniature as it's printed. You'll also notice sometimes you can still see some of the supports on a model. That's just used so that the model can actually print in the first place. It's totally normal, but you do have to remove those before you start to undercoat your miniature. So here we are with supports this kind of size. Just run a knife through. You'll find they come off real easy. Even use the back of the knife just to take those off. And there we go. All the supports removed. When we 3D print our products, we do try to hide the scarring and the supports in places where you wouldn't normally see them. You can see that in the inside of the missile launcher it's got a couple of supports in there. Once you put the back on, you'll never see those ever again. But there are a few lumps and bumps, a couple of little scars just across the top there. I'm just gonna take those straight off. And again, you could use the wet dry sandpaper for this one as well. The bonus of using the wet dry sandpaper on this particular model would be no resin dust whatsoever. When filing large quantities of resin, in fact when filing resin, it's generally good practice to have some kind of a mask on. All right, there's a lot of tiny particulates in the dust. You don't need to be breathing that in. Sometimes when dealing with resin you may find it's quite sticky to the touch, or you can literally see sort of liquid surfaces within it. This means that your resin is not set or cured properly. There's two ways of dealing with this. The first way is you could wash your miniature. An IPA solution or any really strong alcohol solution should be good enough to remove any resin off the surface of your miniature. At Battle Bling we like to do a triple wash when we're preparing anything. So we have an IPA bath of dirty IPA, we transfer into a clean bath of IPA, and then we run it under running water for a few minutes. So if you are 3D printing at home, absolutely recommend a triple wash. The second thing you can do, if you believe there's uncured resin on your miniature, just pop it on the windowsill for a couple of days. UV light does cure resin. So once you've completed preparing your resin, you can glue your miniature to your base, glue your weapons to your models, and you're ready to start painting your model. You can undercoat them at this stage, no problem whatsoever. So in summary, have loads of wet and dry sandpaper, a few grit sticks, massively useful tool to have nearby, a knife, and if you absolutely have to, clippers, but we strongly recommend against it. And there we go. Whether you're waiting for some bling from us or anywhere else, you've now got all the information you need, plus a list of super useful tools to get all your resin ready to be painted and go bling up your own battlefields. Until next time, I've been Johnny Core, we are the Battle Bling store, and you are awesome.